who was the next person in line? Like, who was the next artist that?
Flowers, D Flowers.
How did y'all meet? How did that?
I ran into, so I was living at these apartment complexes in 2014, and it was in the Central Houston area. You run into people all the time over there. I was parking my car in valet, and I saw D Flowers. As I'm pulling up, I saw D Flowers standing in valet, and I had been trying to get in contact with D Flowers because at that time I had been working with DeeBaby for I think like 4 or 5 months. And I always thought D Flowers and DeeBaby would complement each other very well. And like I said, I would try to follow his resume and try to mimic it in a sense. So he's to this day is very inspiring to me. So I walked up to him. I was kind of intimidated. As I'm walking up to him, he's a very, very big dude, very deep voice. He's like, Debo. I always tell him, he's like, Debo, you're always trying to scare people, bro. You're friendly. You're a friendly guy. Just be friendly. So I walked up to D Flowers. I asked him if he could do a feature with my artist. I told him I'm trying to pay him for a feature. Asked him if he can come back the next day. I want him to meet my artist, DeeBaby. Could you come the next day? He came the next day. DeeBaby got to my house before Flowers got to my house, and DeeBaby didn't have any jewelry at this time, and I had this pendant that says SINA. I had 2 of these, and DeeBaby, it was like the first bigger artist we were meeting in Houston. We weren't too familiar with any, like we knew the artists, but we didn't know them. Like we were familiar with who they were, but we didn't personally know them. So we were both trying to get our feet in the door, obviously. DeeBaby was like, let me wear one of your chains, bro, so it help us look good. And I was like, all right, let's do it. D Flowers came, we paid him for a feature. I think that night they did the song. Maybe about 3 weeks later, I was telling D Flowers about the vision that I have for the Be Someone, the Houston projects that we did. And as I was telling him what I wanted to do, I was like, bro, we need to get this guy on a song with this guy. As I'm explaining the vision to him, as I'm pitching the vision to him, he's literally saying, like taking words out of my mouth. I was actually gonna do it with Drew James and DJ XO. They're bigger producers out of Houston. They got a bunch of flags, good dudes. I was in the process of doing it with them. Like earlier that week, I had just talked to them, and we were gonna set up studio sessions that weekend and start working. But I ran into D Flowers, and as I'm telling him my vision, he's taking the words out of my mouth, and I'm like, I already thought D Flowers would compliment DeeBaby so well, and DeeBaby would compliment D Flowers so well. And I couldn't make the Houston project just one artist. Like I couldn't just say it was DeeBaby's project because at the time he had no fan base. So it wouldn't make sense. It would just be like a DeeBaby project featuring a bunch of Houston artists. It wouldn't actually be a Houston project. I was like, I can't drop it. I'm not an artist. I don't want to drop it under the label name. It has to be under DeeBaby's name and somebody else's name. That's why I was going to do it with the other 2 producers because they are very well known, and it made sense to do it with them. But like I said, D Flowers was taking the words out of my mouth. I ended up paying him $50,000 to help me put the first Be Someone together, and that's not having to pay the artist for features. That was just D Flowers coming in and getting me acquainted with the individuals, because he's, at the end of the day, he's the one that helped me establish a relationship with all these artists. They wouldn't have been familiar with DeeBaby or SINA if it wasn't for D Flowers, because D Flowers would come in and he would kind of be my stiff arm. A lot of people would initially try to look at me as a lick, you could say, and they would try to get money out of the situation because they knew I had money, and that's all they saw is dollar signs. They didn't see the vision. They were ignoring the vision, and they saw dollar signs. I respect Flowers so much because he embraced the vision from day one, and he really believed in it. He really wanted to be a part of it as well. D Flowers was on a much higher scale than DeeBaby was at the time. I think DeeBaby had maybe like 6,000 or 7,000 followers on Instagram, and Flowers probably had like 50,000 followers on Instagram. And Flowers at the time was a newer artist, and he had a lot of buzz in the city. So to his credit, I have a lot of respect for him because he didn't have to do that, but he saw the bigger picture, and that, I mean, that's how it came about. I spent money with him on the Be Someone project. He introduced me to a lot of good people. We established. I didn't sign him for probably 18 months after I paid him $50,000 for the visa. We were negotiating. He was actually in a situation. He got in this situation within the first 6 months of us negotiating, but it still took us another year after that to negotiate. He's a very, very, very good dude. I have a lot of respect for him. He helped me a lot. If I wouldn't be who I was, not just in the music industry, but I wouldn't be he's helped me grow so much as a person, because there's only so many artists that actually make sense when they speak, but when he speaks, he speaks a lot of volume. He speaks at a very high volume, and he makes a lot of sense when he talks. And he's a good person on top of that, so it's very genuine advice. And I could see like he would always want the best for the people around him. He wants the best for himself, and he like I said, he believed in the vision from day one. And I can't explain how much respect I have for him and how much I appreciate everything that he brings to the table. So.
And you said you basically gave him $50,000 to help you with the project, with the Be Someone project. How much in total do you feel like you put into that project?
I put my all into the project. I don't know what do you mean?
Like total, as in like, cause you said you gave him $50,000. Yeah, money wise.
Okay.
Roughly, it's not.
Yeah.
It's crazy. The first Be Somewhere I spent way, because nobody knew me. Like I said, everybody looked at me like they were like, they didn't know that it would be what it is to this day. They thought I was just one of these guys who was going to come spend money and then they would never see me again, you know? So I had to spend a lot of money on that first project. It's crazy because I got Sauce Walker, Zero, Slim Thug, all the people who actually charge good money for features were on the second project. But I spent more money on the first project. I probably spent like $160 on the whole project, on the first Houston project. But a lot of that was to build my brand, in a sense. It wasn't necessarily like, well, I paid everybody's prices. I would want people to pay my prices whenever I got to that level, right? You know, as I grow, I want people to pay my price, so I understand where they're coming from, and that's why I did what I did to establish the relationship, because I knew somewhere along the lines that would not just benefit me, but it would benefit everyone around me, and it would benefit them as well, and that they would buy into the vision once I spent money with them, essentially.